Good morning, everybody. What I wanted to talk about today has to do with the concept of Lucifer, Satan, Jesus, and Christ all being the same energy, and how they apply to our journey here in this reality. There's been a lot of posting about that recently, and people have asked some questions, and so I want to do is kind of go through that and maybe get a little bit better, a little more in-depth explanation than the little short posts I've been able to put on there. To start with, when you understand what the Bible is in its allegoric nature, it's the story of us on our journey, our internal journey, coming through this reality, what we're going to experience, and how to work our way back to balance between spirit and ego self, because this is an ego reality. So what Lucifer represents, because he is considered the morning star, the bright and shining sun, and so on, the same as Jesus, which again gives you an indication that they are the same energies, only a different version of the same energy. When it says in the Bible that Lucifer, which is a representation of our spirit aspect, our spirit self before we moved into a physical reality, the Bible explains that he was cast out of heaven with 1/3 of the angels. Well, when you start to understand the allegoric nature and the hidden numeric numbers and what the numbers within the Bible mean. Remember, 7 within the Bible always refers to the 7 chakras, so 33 always represents the vertebrae and those kind of things. Right hand of God is always represented as the right hand of God represents the right hemisphere of the brain, your spiritual side. So in the Bible, when it talks about Lucifer being cast down from heaven down to earth, along with 1/3 of the angels. Well, what is 1/3? It's representing out of 100, 1/3 is 33.3. 333 equals 9. 9 equals human consciousness. The earth, which he was cast down to, represents the body, the humanity. Lucifer, our spirit self, 9, was cast out into human consciousness, into the human body. That's a representation of Lucifer being cast out of heaven down into earth with 1/3 of the angels. Lucifer was cast from the spirit. It's a representation of us on our journey, coming from our spirit self, coming into what we call a physical reality, being cast down into earth, which is the human body. At the point of Lucifer entering the human body, being exposed to the ego reality, he became Satan. Same energy, just a different version of it. It's a representation of our ego energy being within the physical reality, representing the 6 lower chakras. In all that, the ego reality, the materialism, the fear, the chakra system, that's all representation of Satan. As we move through that, and we start to become more aware of our spiritual nature, through studying, through learning, and through just awakening within ourselves, as we become aware of our spiritual nature, we move into what is called Jesus. That's a representation of our spiritual nature coming back into focus. That's why when Jesus was taken by Satan to the top of a mountain and told that he shown all the kingdoms of the world, which, just think about that for a minute, all the kingdoms of the world from the top of a mountain. Well, the earth either had to be flat or there's something else going on. So anyway, when he was showing them that, basically Satan, the ego self, was telling Jesus, the spiritual self, you can have all the materialism, you can have this reality, you can deal and play in the chakras, you can play here in this reality if you choose to stay in the lower chakras, within the lower earthly body, the Satan body, the ego body. Jesus represents that spiritual part of ourselves. As Jesus moved through his time here, because remember, now he was born, disappeared for 33 years, and then came back and suddenly became the savior of man again. Think about that kind of stuff. But he represents the spiritual self of us as we start our spiritual journey. As he went through his spiritual journey, and at the end, when he was supposedly crucified, what he was crucifying was the ego reality. He was giving up this reality. He became the Christ. In other words, he moved back up through that Luciferian energy, only he became a balanced energy with the ego and with spirit together, with the spirit doing the driving, but the ego along for the ride in agreement. The ego got to where it understood that by giving and allowing, it was actually helping itself. The problem we have in this reality is that the ego thinks only of itself, which is why a lot of this crap that you're hearing on television has gotten so far out of hand, because it has to get to the point where the ego becomes afraid. The ego has to become fearful that the things are going on, like all the looting, the rioting. It has to get to the point to where it's afraid that itself is going to be affected by what is going on, and then it's going to be willing to change. So the idea is that when Lucifer came down into Satan, who moved into Jesus, who moved when he became the Christ, he accepted that the ego moved back into its proper position. Ego and spirit were now in a balance of alignment with the spirit doing the driving. That's the journey of ourself on this earth and on this reality. And that's really what it means. Thank you for your time.